Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. It's 17th of July, 2023. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So actually, before we get into it today, just wanted to quickly thank everyone who wished me a happy birthday yesterday. I did post on Twitter that it was my birthday yesterday. Had some great American barbecue to celebrate and had some great time with the fiance there. But yeah, thank you to everyone for wishing me a happy birthday. I am 31, not 50. A lot of people in the comments thought I was like 50 or much older than what I am. And I can kind of get that because I have like the beard and I guess I look older than what I am. But it's always funny when people comment that. It's like, no, I'm not 50, guys. I'm 31. But yeah, no, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for the well wishes there. But anyway, moving into the news. So there's actually a lot to talk about that happened over the last few days, and I'll get into all the biggest stuff. But to start us off with today, we have an update on the SEC versus a Coinbase case. So this comes from Meta Lawman. You can read this little thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But basically, it seems the judge is favoring Coinbase at the moment. It seems the judge is going against the SEC. We obviously saw last week with XRP or Ripple winning their case against the SEC, or at least partially winning their case against the SEC. It seems like the SEC's regulation via enforcement kind of approach has not been very successful, and is getting a lot of pushback now from the courts system, and that the same thing is true with the SEC versus Coinbase case here. Now, basically, Meta Lawman points out here that the judge assigned to the Coinbase SEC case, Judge Failer, I think that's how you say, or Fayala, I think that's how you say her name. She says, it's not crazy in the Fayala parlance for Coinbase to think that what they were doing was okay because it was exactly what you let them do when they filed their IPO registration. So basically, it's pretty wild that people were making this point saying, why did the SEC approve Coinbase going public if they thought Coinbase was doing illegal things such as trading unregistered securities? And the judge is basically saying that as well. Like, why did you approve Coinbase's IPO if this was the case? Because Coinbase had some of these assets listed that you have said that are unregistered securities at the time of their IPO, and they also had ETH staking, I believe, as well there. So it's great to see that, and that's basically those comments basically signal that the judge is favoring Coinbase over SEC, but it's still very early, right? But I think that with the loss last week for the SEC from Ripple, with the fact that it was a pretty big loss because the judge basically said that XRP wasn't a security, and now this judge saying that, hey, the SEC doesn't seem to be doing its job. If you're now saying that Coinbase is doing illegal things that they were doing at the time that you approved their IPO, yeah, it feels good to get some wins under our belt, right, against the SEC and against Gary Gensler, who definitely has been encroaching and on crypto for quite a while now, and has been extending the powers of the SEC, which definitely need to be put in check, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to give that little update there on that one. You can check out the full thread. It's not that long, but I'll link it in the description below for you to do so. All right, so there was another ETH Call Devs consensus call over the weekend, or I believe on Friday, but there was this recap put together by Christine Kim here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But there was one thing in particular from the call that I wanted to talk about, and that was the core developers discussing addressing the validator set size. So right now we know that there's a lot of validators coming online on the Ethereum network, and the more validators that come online, the more load is put on the network, because obviously the more validators there are, the more signatures there are, the more more work every validator has to do, the more bandwidth each validator basically has to, each staking setup would use, and that's an issue, right? Because if the validator set size gets too large, and I think estimates say if we get to like 2 million validators, we're going to lose the ability to validate on low-powered hardware such as Rock 5Bs and Raspberry Pis, because the load would be too much for that hardware, right? And obviously bandwidth requirements are going to go up so much that we end up kicking off people who don't have unlimited bandwidth, right? And to give you a sense of numbers here, I think you can potentially use up to like 2 terabytes a month, I think, right now. And that's fine for people who have probably unlimited data caps like me. I mean, I'm using almost 20 terabytes a month because I'm running multiple EL-CL combos. But for a lot of people, they don't have that. So how do we address this problem, right? How do we address the validator growth rate? Well, there are a few different solutions that were tabled. One of them included a potential monetary policy change, which would basically change the issuance curve of Ethereum staking. I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't think it should happen unless it's more than just capping the validator set reasoning. And I understand that the reasoning is that we're currently overpaying for security, but I would like to see actual numbers on that. I would like to see deep research done on that. I would like to see community discussions around that before that is even considered for inclusion in any kind of upgrade. And I think that the developers, they wanted to get something into Denkun, the next Ethereum network upgrade, but that's definitely not going to happen in my mind. I don't think there's going to be a monetary policy change in that upgrade. The second thing that could be done is, as I discussed, I think a few weeks ago, where you would basically lift the max effective validator balance to something like 2048 ETH instead of 32 ETH, so that people could consolidate their stake into, a handful of validators instead of potentially hundreds of validators if they have a lot of ETH, right? And this would obviously bring down the amount of validators on the network and would bring down network load overall. Now, I think that I said last time that something like this would be like neutral to positive for the network if you weigh up all the pros and cons. I'm actually going even further towards the positive side now, simply because I would rather that solution than a monetary policy change just to address the validator size. I think a monetary policy change to address other things would be welcomed, but as I said, I'd like to see more research there. But if it was just for this sole purpose, then I would prefer the max effective balance being increased. Now, the easiest solution that was tabled was something that could be included with Denkun, and that would basically be to cap the churn limit at 12 validators per epoch. So basically, it would cap how many validators could enter the beacon chain per epoch, so that we could slow the rate of growth of the amount of validators coming online. So it gives us more time to basically come up with the better solutions and get them included in network upgrades. This is something that could be done very easily. I think it would be like maybe even just a line of code changed, and it could be included in Denkun, and it shouldn't be controversial. It does kind of change the calculus a little bit, I guess, and basically changes the expected future rate of growth for validators, and I guess that's the whole point, right? But I don't think anyone would really care. I don't think people would be like, oh, I expected at this point to be able to enter the validator queue. Sorry, to be able to enter Ethereum staking faster because the churn limit went up because more validators came online. I don't even think most people know about the churn limit. So yeah, I think this is like by far the least controversial option, and the one that should be, I don't even think it's controversial at all, to be honest, but it's the easiest option and the one that should be pursued if the core developers and researchers agree that we need to do something to slow the slow the validator set growth. Now, some people ask, why wasn't this done earlier? Why was this not taken into consideration earlier? Well, it was, but at the same time, I don't think even the core developers and researchers realized just how fast Ethereum staking would grow. Because you need to remember, a lot of this was designed back when we were in a pretty deep bear market. A lot of this was designed in 2018, 2019, right? The beacon chain went live in December of 2020, and then pretty much all the focus was put on basically getting the merge done, which was a huge undertaking, obviously. But then after that, we the focus was done on putting through validated withdrawals. And now there's a lot of other things on the Ethereum roadmap to consider, that it just was something that was talked about and considered, and there were solutions tabled. But essentially what happened is, I think that the validator set size grew a lot faster than people thought it would. And honestly, I was pretty blown away as well. I didn't think that we would get to a persistent validator queue of over 88,000 still. I mean, it was over 90,000. It's still over 80,000. I didn't think we would get to that, but I think I really underestimated how popular ETH staking would be. I really underestimated the demand for things like LSTs, for example, and how people could use them within DeFi. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, right? And I've discussed this for a while, but I don't think I kind of like estimated the growth rate of those things properly, which is it's a nice problem to have. I think it's a nice surprise, but at the same time, it brings with it other issues. So yeah, those are the three kind of options being looked at. As I said, I don't think an Ethereum monetary policy change or an issuance curve change would happen anytime soon, and I don't think it would happen if it was only only to address this issue in particular. It would have to happen if it would address multiple different things and it was convincing enough for the community to say, hey, we should do this, because it shouldn't be easy to change the monetary policy. And traditionally, it hasn't been. It's been quite difficult to do so. And it was only done when the community felt it was necessary, because Ethereum's monetary policy basically boils down to what's called minimum viable issuance, which basically means we issue as much new ETH that is minimally viable to secure the Ethereum network and no more. And right now, a lot of the researchers believe that we are currently overpaying for security, which means we are issuing too much ETH to secure the Ethereum network. And I would like to see, obviously, more research done on that. I would like to see more arguments around that and more discussion happen around that. But there's not going to be a monetary policy change anytime soon. As for increasing the max effective validator balance, that is a more complex change. It's definitely not going into Denkun, even if it was approved today. So that could happen sometime next year if it was approved and if the community wanted it. And obviously, there's the trade-offs there that I've discussed before. And then there is this churn limit thing, just setting it to 12 instead of letting it keep increasing as the more validators come online. That is the most palatable solution. That is something that could go live with Denkun, and we'll have to see if it will. But yeah, I'll keep an eye on that and keep you guys updated on that one there. All right, so we have a long tweet here from Ryan Berkmans today talking about ETH's positive black swans, and he basically talks about all these things that are going to happen for Ethereum as a network and ETH as an asset to continue, I guess, like growing Ethereum's network effect, growing Ethereum's moats, and making Ethereum the best settlement layer it can be, and ETH the best asset it can be. Now, I'm not going to read out the whole tweet for you. You can go check this out for yourself. But one thing I did want to mention is that Ethereum generally has two things that it's scaling, right? I mean, okay, you could say it's three, but let's stick to two. There are two technical things that Ethereum is scaling. It's scaling Ethereum, the network, right? We're scaling that via layer 2s, roll-ups, all that good stuff there. And I've talked about those a lot. And I will talk more about that in a sec because there's an exciting announcement got to do with that happened over the weekend. But a lot of people forget that Ethereum also scales ETH, the asset. And it does this in a few different ways. So ETH, the asset, is kind of the main export of the Ethereum network. You can think of this like the US and the US dollar. So the US exports US dollars to the rest of the world. It is the world reserve currency. It is the currency for the preferred currency for international trade. It is the preferred currency in a lot of countries around the world that have pretty high inflation, right? Like places like Argentina and Zimbabwe and things like that. They prefer the US dollar. Same is true for ETH, right? ETH gets exported to all kinds of networks within the crypto ecosystem. It gets exported to other layer 1s via bridges. It gets exported to via layer 2s, via the same bridges. It gets exported to side chains. It is this asset that everyone wants, right? And a lot of people denominate their wealth in. They use it as money. They use it as collateral. It has a huge market cap, right? It is basically the reserve asset of the crypto ecosystem. I know that a BTC exists, but BTC is a lot less portable than ETH. It's a lot less interoperable than ETH. You have a lot more trust assumptions as well. Because not only do you have bridging trust assumptions, but any kind of tokenized BTC is completely centralized, right? So you have multiple failure modes there. And BTC is just not a very financialized asset when it comes to on-chain things. Maybe outside of that it is. It's obviously a store of value. People use it as that. In certain places around the world, people do use BTC as money in very limited fashions. It's not really used that much. But whereas with ETH is the money of the on-chain ecosystem. Everyone wants to use it. It is the gas fees for Ethereum layer 1. It's used as gas on these layer 2s. And then it is used and is the biggest kind of like source of collateral for a lot of these money markets, for different liquidity positions, stuff like that. So not only as the Ethereum ecosystem are we scaling Ethereum, the network, but we're also scaling ETH, the asset, in various different ways. And now I did mention there were three ways that Ethereum kind of scales. The third way is more social. So Ethereum exports its values, right? And has these kind of values and principles of decentralization, censorship resistance, all that good stuff. And it exports those things to the layer 2s, because the layer 2s, if and when they're constructed correctly, get to inherit those properties. They get to inherit censorship resistance, they get to inherit security and potentially liveness benefits and things like that from Ethereum. But with that comes the social inheritance. They become aligned with Ethereum, right? They become part of the Ethereum network and part of the Ethereum family, and they are welcomed with open arms rather than something like an alternative layer 1, for example. That is a perfect segue into a very exciting thing that I wanted to talk about that happened over the weekend. Was this proposal on the Celo governance forum from Celo Labs to transition, or to basically change Celo from an L1 into an Ethereum based L2. Now, for those of you who don't know, Celo has been around for quite a while. It is an L1. It has its own validator set, and it's been around, I think, as early as 2019. I remember seeing a presentation given actually on Celo in 2019 in Berlin, I believe. I think it was DAppCon in 2019. And even back then, I was thinking to myself, I don't think this could succeed as a layer 1. I don't think this is meant to be a layer 1. And I haven't paid too much attention to Celo since then, but they started off as wanting to basically create a payments network, or a kind of like payment rails for developing countries. I don't know what kind of success they've had with that or with their layer 1 model, but you guys know my opinion on layer 1s generally. They're, in my opinion, most of the time, or pretty much all the time, far inferior to layer 2s. But in saying that, for a long time now, the ability to transition from a layer 1 to a layer 2 has been difficult at best, right? Because the infrastructure just wasn't there. It's only recently that we had a lot of the infrastructure come online. And the infrastructure I'm talking about are the tools to make the transition easy, such as the OP stack, such as the zkSync stack, right? Such as the Polygon ZK stack. So basically these SDKs, or software development kits, that allow you to create an L2 very easily, and allow you to pick and choose what you want. So pick your data availability layer, pick your settlement layer, pick what infrastructure you use, all that sorts of stuff. And that's exactly what Celo is doing here. They're going to be leveraging the, I believe, the OP stack from what I can read here, and they're going to be storing their data on eigenlayers, data availability layers, or eigenDA. So what's cool about this is that it still is a layer 2, because I define a layer 2 as something that posts its proofs to Ethereum, but it can store its data elsewhere. So it's optional data on Ethereum, but it can store its data on eigendata availability layer or somewhere else, right? Whereas a roll-up is something that posts both of those things to Ethereum. Now, people will disagree with my definition on these things, but I'm not here to debate that today. What I'm here to discuss is this actual proposal. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be transitioning the L1 to an L2 using the OP stack, storing their data on eigenDA. And what they're also going to be doing is decentralized sequencing by using their existing validator set. Now, this is really cool because they do have an existing validator set. So instead of having to bootstrap a new one, they're basically going to be using their existing validator set to decentralize out the sequencing of the Celo layer 2 here, which I thought was really cool and really novel. And then on top of that, you've got here that they'll be using eigenDA as their data availability layer because they want to maintain those low fees on Celo. I get that. It's going to be interesting to see where these L2s choose to store their data once EIP 4844 goes live. Like, will it be cheap enough to justify the lower security of an off-chain data availability solution rather than putting it on Ethereum layer 1? We'll have to see. But at the same time, eigenDA is validated by the same validators that Ethereum is using. Not to say it's going to have the same decentralization, security, liveness guarantees as Ethereum layer 1, but if you had to choose between a data availability layer that was secured by Ethereum validators and one that was secured by, I don't know, some random validators you have, that just got stood up for the purpose of securing that data availability layer, I know what I would choose first and foremost. It would be obviously the Ethereum validators. So that's very cool. And then the third point here is that a design that retains Celo's one block finality. Now, I haven't read into this too much yet. But that sounds pretty cool as well. Obviously, Ethereum wants to get to one block finality eventually, but if Celo can somehow do it as an L2, that would be pretty cool as well. But Yeah, I think the broader discussion here around L1s becoming L2s, outside of the fact that I'm going to do a little bit of gloating here. I called this a long time ago. If you've been watching the refuel for a while, you know that I have said for a long time now that when the infrastructure is there, we're going to see L1s become L2s because it makes a lot of sense from not just an economic standpoint, because it's much more expensive to be an L1 than it is an L2, but also from a network effect, community, product market fit standpoint. And on that note, another thing that I want to talk about is that typically the Ethereum community's, I guess, approach to these L1s is to be hostile towards them, right? And I get that because I've been hostile towards them. I think my reasoning for being hostile towards them is a bit different to other people's. For me, it's more that I just don't see the point in them technically and economically. I know that there are some of them that have communities that have attacked Ethereum in the past, and that really annoyed me, obviously over the high gas fees and stuff like that. But for me, I always looked at these L1s, and especially the ones that were like EVM compatible, and I thought to myself, this is so pointless. Because I saw the L2s coming. I saw them improving all the time. I was keeping up with it very closely, and now they're basically at the point where these L1s can transition. I think Ethereum as a community needs to embrace these L1s. Now, not every L1 is obviously created equal or should be treated equal. For example, if there was an L1 that came across that was extremely hostile to Ethereum for much of its history and became an L2, I personally am not going to just welcome them with open arms because they're bringing their community with them, right? If their community is still going to be hostile towards Ethereum, even as an L2, well, that just kind of defeats the whole purpose, right? But whereas with something like Celo, I don't believe that they've ever been hostile to Ethereum. I haven't seen it. Maybe originally they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. I haven't seen it personally. So I don't think that we should deride them or we should kind of like make fun of them. I don't think we should say, oh, there's the ghost L1s are coming over and there's going to be ghost L2s. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I expect there to be plenty of ghost L2s. There's going to be ghost L2s. And what I mean by ghost L2s is basically L2s that don't have any activity on them. But I expect there to be plenty of these ghost L2s that started off as L2s. Just because, as I've said many times before, I don't believe there's going to be that many generalized L2s that are going to be super successful. I believe there's probably going to be less than 5 that are like 80% of the activity happening there. But in terms of the specialized app chains or app L2s, there's going to be plenty of those. But at the same time, not all of them are going to succeed. There's going to be plenty of dead-end ones because they're going to be projects or products that people just didn't want to use. Just because it's an L2 doesn't mean that it's going to succeed. So I don't think that... So I guess my main points here is that I don't think we should be necessarily hostile to these projects. I don't think we should be shitting on them. I don't think we should be wishing them ill or anything like that. If they transition to being an Ethereum L2, it's on them, obviously, to grow their own project, grow their own product. And if they've made the decision to become an L2, I think that's the first step in mending their relationship with the Ethereum community if they were hostile in the past. But yeah, I don't think we should go around on Twitter and parade around and kind of like deride them or anything like that. Now, as I said, it is a case-by-case basis as well. There are certain L1s that have been much more hostile than others. But yeah, we'll have to see how that evolves there. But I'm curious to see what the next L1 is that becomes an Ethereum L2. If I had to guess, I actually couldn't, to be honest, guess right now. Because there are a bunch out there that I think would make a lot of sense to be an L2 rather than L1. But at the same time, they're kind of like dying L1s to begin with and don't really offer anything different to the existing set that we have. At least with Celo, their whole thing is going after and creating payments networks and these tools for community impact for developing nations, things like that. So at least they have something that they're focusing on that does fit with Ethereum community values, like Gitcoin, stuff like that, like the public goods network and things like that. But it's not like one of these other EVM L1s, which are literally the same thing as like Optimism and Arbitrum, right? They're just offering EVM compatibility, and developers can just deploy their same apps on them. I don't even see the point in them transitioning to an L2 because they are just going to be in the same position as an L1. So there are going to be projects out there that maybe make the transition that, in my mind, are probably going to fail straight away, but that's going to happen anyway. But yeah, this was a very exciting announcement and news out of the Celo ecosystem here. You can go check out the full post for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And yeah, the summary here from Vishal just recaps what I said about Celo, that it's going to be an optimistic rollup using the OP stack, using EigenDA and decentralized sequencing via Celo's existing validator set. All right, sticking on the layer 2 topic. So zkSync has announced something really exciting here today. So they've announced something called Boojum. I think that's how you say it. It's probably not. I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's spelled Boojum. So Boojum is zkSync Era's new high-performance proof system for radical decentralization. It's an upgrade that will transition zkSync Era to a Stark-powered proof system, providing world-class performance on consumer-grade hardware. So I've talked about ZK provers before and about how getting the hardware requirements down for proving is something that pretty much every ZK team is focusing on right now and competing against right now. My cryptography knowledge is definitely not to the point where I could say what system's better than another, but it does seem like there seems to be a convergence on a Stark-based approach at this point versus other approaches. Now, as I said, I'm not up to speed on it. I'm just kind of observing here. But what I found really interesting about the proving kind of this new thing from zkSync was that they've been able to bring down the proving costs to consumer-grade GPUs requiring only 16 gig of GPU RAM. So that's basically the biggest breakthrough, I believe, in this announcement here, because it means that myself with my NVIDIA 4080 in my machine could use that to prove ZK proofs on the zkSync network, which I can't do right now with other ZK provers as far as I know. I think that I remember saying Scrolls prover, I can't remember the RAM requirements that they had. I think it was like 128 gig or something like that. And that was down from a lot higher, and it's going to keep coming down from there. And also, at the same time, proving, as much as I think it's important to bring the hardware requirements down, it's not like absolutely critical, because proving, you only need one proof. So it doesn't matter if it's like a one of n kind of trust assumption, right? A one of n kind of design here, where basically you can have one prover and just proving everything, and as long as they get the proof out there, you're good to go. But obviously you want to have more than one for redundancy and liveness and things like that. So that's why it's good to bring these requirements down as much as possible, so that consumers and everyday people can participate in this and also potentially earn fees for doing this as well. So yeah, you can go check out Boojum for yourself. I'll link the full announcement in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, sticking on the layer 2 topic again, Mantle has announced their official mainnet, which is live now. So Mantle network is now open to all blockchain users, from developers to users. So another L2 joins the fray here, which is really awesome to see. You can go check out Mantle network. Check out the announcement about this for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But yeah, their testnet has been live since January of this year. So they had about, I guess, 6 or 7 months worth of testnet. And now they've launched their mainnet here. I saw something about them storing their data off-chain as well, so not on Ethereum L1. I'm just trying to find it here because I remember seeing it, but I've forgotten exactly where they're storing their data. I think it might have been EigenDA, which is kind of funny because EigenDA is landing a lot of projects so far, and it's not. I don't believe it's live yet. I believe it's going to go live relatively soon here. But yeah, I think this is where they're settling their data to. But yeah, as I said, another L2 live here on mainnet for you to go check out. I believe that there was maybe an airdrop as well or something like that. For Mantle, so you may be eligible for that. That's something to check out there. But you can read the full post here for details on all of this. I will link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Lens Protocol V2 has been introduced, and the reason why there's a lot of major announcements lately, guys, is because ETHCC, the conference in Paris is currently on, and you're going to see more major announcements come out over the next few days because of that. So it is going to be an exciting week this week, hopefully. But yeah, anyway, jumping into Lens Protocol V2, it's obviously the next chapter of Lens here. V2 brings even greater control to builders and integrators, as well as people exploring Web3 powered experiences. So basically, there are a bunch of of new features here. One of them is called Open Actions, which sets a new milestone for composable social networking by bridging external Web3 experiences directly into the Lens app. With Open Actions, users and developers can bring their own smart contracts to enable any external smart contract action on a Lens publication. This capability can even be extended to cross-chain actions with an Oracle support, such as actions on Ethereum and L2s. And you can see here what this currently looks like. You can see all the different use cases, such as buying an NFT ticket, minting something on sound.xyz, minting on OpenSea on Polygon. So it's basically bringing interoperability to the Lens stack here. And they've given more examples of what this is here. So there's a bunch of other features that you can give a read. I'll link this in the YouTube description for you below to check out. But I just noticed I'm at 30 minutes already, so I'm going to power through the rest of these updates because there's a few other things to talk about here. So yeah, check this out, Lens Protocol V2. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. So the Aave DAO has launched Go, the Go stablecoin, which I discussed last week in depth. So I'm not going to rehash all of my discussion from last week about this, but Go is live on mainnet. I believe that they have over $100 million worth of TVL already, which is very cool. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Go because I think, as I mentioned last week, fiat pegged stablecoins are all going to hit ceilings, and they're all going to hit ceilings because you can't have something that's truly decentralized and use truly decentralized collateral and not hit a ceiling, just for all the reasons I mentioned last week. You can go watch last week's episodes for this. I believe it was either Thursday or Friday's episode. But I still think it's interesting to see all these different stablecoin designs be played out in the market and be played out on chain, for people to play around with, see which ones stick, see which ones don't. So that's why I'm excited to see go live today or yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, July 16th. So you can go check that out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. Speaking of V2s, Liquity is coming out with a V2. So you can see here that at the Stable Summit, which I believe was a side event to ETHCC, they apparently, or they being Liquity, apparently believe they have announced the, I guess, like solution, or they have cracked the solution to the stablecoin trilemma. And that stablecoin trilemma is the thing that I've discussed before: scalability, stability, and decentralization. So they say, yeah, we're not stopping at just creating a stablecoin. The next iteration will offer attractive products for leverage and borrowing for staked ETH holders. We're working towards a public launch in 2024. I invite you to be part of this exciting journey. Liquity V2 will extend the existing offering and deliver a new reserve-backed stablecoin model harnessing staked ETH. And you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I'm most curious to see how they've actually solved or the stablecoin trilemma, because as I've discussed before, I don't actually think there's a solution to it, because there's just not enough collateral available, decentralized collateral available to back a stablecoin, to keep it truly decentralized and to make it scalable, right? Forget about stability. Just think about scalability and decentralization. And if you do have a collateral asset such as ETH that is big enough, then ETH becomes the stablecoin. As I discussed last week, if ETH's market cap is like $100 trillion, right? For example, I mean, it could be one day, right? I mean, if Ethereum succeeds, why not? But if it is $100 trillion, then ETH is literally the stablecoin. ETH would be used as money, not just within the on-chain ecosystem and the online ecosystem, but everywhere. And in that world, we wouldn't need a fiat-pegged stablecoin. We would just use ETH, right? And ETH is already used as money in a lot of ways, which is pretty crazy considering that its market cap is very small compared to other currencies around the world. It's $250 billion, right? That's tiny, really, relative to other things around the world. But if it's 100 trillion, then the calculus is different here. So we wouldn't need fiat pegged stablecoins in that world. But yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this. Maybe I've missed it. I don't know if they've announced how they've solved it yet. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't looked too deeply into it just yet. But you can go check that out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, just to round out and finish up today's episode, as the Synthetix ecosystem is undergoing a pretty radical shift here. So Kain posted a blog post over the weekend titled Synthetix What Comes Next Part 4. So they are going to be launching something called Infinex, which is a new product that the Synthetix ecosystem is launching here, and you can read all about it in this blog post. But essentially what Infinex is trying to be or trying to do is that they're trying to kill centralized exchanges. So they want to be a fully decentralized exchange that can rival the experience that you get on centralized exchanges, from speed to cost to everything else. And of course, the Synthetix ecosystem will be at the heart of this, and the SNX token will also be at the heart of this. And you can read all the details about this in the blog post here. And there is a waiting list now live at infinex.io for you to sign up to if you would like. Now, this is a pretty big undertaking, I believe, and has been a long time coming, I think. There's discussions all the way back in 2021 that discusses things like, discusses the name Infinex itself, and there is also a kind of like a post here from 2020 from Garth at Synthetix asking, which do you prefer as the new name for Synthetix Exchange, Quenta or Infinex? And then Quenta ended up coming out, and I believe it's been live for quite a while now, but now Infinex is the next step in the Synthetix journey here. So you can go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but I think that's going to be it for today's longer episode. I didn't expect it to go this long, but thank you everyone for bearing with me, and thank you for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.